Meditation's impact on brain structure and function. That is our topic today. Meditation isn't about stress relief, at least not from a neurological perspective. It's about changing the way the brain physically processes information, and more specifically, how it allocates attention, regulates emotion, and builds long-term patterns of response. Most people treat meditation like a mental break, something you do to feel calmer or reset, but research shows meditation doesn't just shift your state, it reshapes your structure. The key word here is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to physically change its wiring in response to experience. And meditation, when done consistently, becomes a kind of manual override, a targeted input that rewires the brain's default patterns. We're not talking about momentary stillness. We're talking about changes in gray matter volume, cortical thickness, and functional connectivity between key brain regions. Let's make this real. Studies using MRI imaging have found that people who meditate regularly, as little as 10 to 15 minutes per day over several weeks, show measurable increases in the prefrontal cortex, that's the region responsible for executive function, planning, and impulse control. The hippocampus, which is involved in memory formation and emotional regulation, also sees growth. There's also the anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for attention and decision-making. And interestingly, there's reduced volume in the amygdala, the area that processes fear and threat. What does that mean? It means the brain over time becomes less reactive, more self-regulated, and more capable of sustained attention, not as a temporary shift, but as a structural reality. One of the most misunderstood things about meditation is this. The structural changes in the brain begin before you feel like you're good at meditating. Why? Because the brain doesn't rewire based on success, it rewires based on repetition under focused attention. So what changes first? The earliest and most consistent structural shift happens in the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain that governs attention regulation and conflict monitoring. In plain terms, this is the region that helps you notice when your mind has wandered and bring it back without emotional overreaction. Within just 2 to 4 weeks of daily practice, studies show measurable increases in activity and density here. Not because you're achieving some deep state of peace, but because you're doing the one thing meditation trains relentlessly: attention redirection. This is why, early practice feels frustrating, because the very thing meditation strengthens, the part of the brain that notices distraction, is waking up. And as it strengthens, you actually become more aware of how scattered your mind is. That's not failure, that's plasticity in motion. Before we keep going, if this is connecting, if it's helping you understand your brain differently than before, tap the like button. And if you want more grounded, research-backed videos like this one, hit subscribe so YouTube knows to show them to you. Second area is the default mode network, DMN. The DMN is the collection of brain regions that activates when you're not focused. Daydreaming, worrying, looping narratives, rehearsing social scenarios. In long-term meditators, this network shows reduced activation and weaker coupling with the medial prefrontal cortex, the part associated with self-referential thought. Translation: so meditation makes the brain, less obsessed with your own narrative. It actually gives you distance from your internal commentary. That space, between thought and reaction, that's where the real change begins. One of the most well-documented changes It's a shift in the balance between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It's not rational, it's fast, reactive, and tuned for threat detection. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is where deliberate reasoning and long-range planning happen. In people who meditate regularly, functional MRI scans show decreased activity in the amygdala during stress, increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, and stronger connectivity between them. That means instead of emotionally hijacking the system, the brain actually begins to pause, assess, and respond. This isn't just some philosophical metaphor, it's a measurable shift in neural traffic. Another major effect is hippocampal growth. The hippocampus, which is critical for memory and emotional integration, tends to shrink under chronic stress, especially in individuals with anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or burnout. But, consistent meditation has been shown to actually reverse that shrinkage. It doesn't just slow damage, it promotes regrowth. This has profound implications. It suggests that meditation may support the restoration of memory function, enhance resilience under stress, and even support recovery in trauma-affected brains. So when people say meditation makes you calmer, what they're really describing is this: a brain that no longer treats every moment like a survival event, a nervous system that can update instead of repeat, a mind that can observe discomfort without collapsing into it. When we talk about the effects of long-term meditation, we're not just talking about lower stress levels or better sleep. We're talking about something much more fundamental. A reorganization of how the brain constructs identity, interprets experience, and relates to the self. Let's be clear, this is not about belief. It's about measurable changes in functional connectivity and sensory integration. These are changes that shift what the brain pays attention to and how it labels reality. Key mechanism here is weakened self-referential processing. In long-term meditators, brain scans show reduced activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, which is the hub of self-focused rumination. There's also greater engagement of sensory processing networks, leading to increased present-moment awareness. And, there's loosened coupling between autobiographical memory and emotional reactivity. Translation: the brain stops reinforcing the old narrative as the central lens through which every experience is judged. This allows for what psychologists call decentering, the ability to observe thoughts, feelings, and sensations without collapsing into them. And this is where the self begins to change. You're no longer just the product of your reactions, you're the observer of those reactions. And that shift has measurable consequences: decreased chronic anxiety, increased tolerance for uncertainty, enhanced emotional regulation, and in many cases, a reduction in default mode-driven identity loops like, "I'm always like this, I can't change, this is just who I am." Meditation doesn't erase the self. It reorganizes the hierarchy of what gets processed as you. And honestly, that is one of the most powerful forms of cognitive freedom we've ever studied. Let's lock this in. Meditation isn't about escaping your thoughts. It's about changing the systems that generate them. And, over time, that change is no longer just about managing the moment. It's about evolving how your brain thinks, feels, remembers, and even chooses who you get to become. If this gave you real clarity, not just information but understanding, like the video so it reaches more people. And if you want more grounded, science-backed videos like this, not surface-level summaries, but real insight into how the brain actually works, then, yeah, like the video and hit subscribe. That way you won't miss what's coming next. The content on this channel is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute medical, financial, legal, business, or lifestyle advice. Always consult a qualified professional before making changes to your health, meditation practice, or neurological care. All insights are based on publicly available research at the time of publication and may evolve as new findings emerge.